Make sure I'm selecting the good microphone too. I muted it. Turn off system audio recording. Well, we don't want that. Okay, whatever. If I got the crappy mic, who cares? We'll work all this out later. I am going to make that video for the practice problems that I had you guys do for your first reading assignment as well. I'm just have to prioritize my work. All right, so the IA is assessed with 4 different criteria. One is research design, the other is data analysis, and then conclusion and evaluation. So each of these sections will be broken up into its own separate rubric, basically, for covering those 6 marks. Each of those is weighted evenly, and they're all worth 6 points. So let's look at what we've got to do for research and design. Okay, I'm recording. All right, now notice here they're worth 6 marks. You guys know how a rubric works. If the criteria fall in this band, they would get 1 to 2. Really, whether it's a 1 or a 2 is kind of the subjective teacher discretion kind of thing, right? And then each bullet point gets assessed. Now, once we, as a teacher or an IB moderator, award you marks for each criteria, we give kind of a holistic determination of what the actual mark is. So maybe you get like the first bullet point falls in the 1, 2, the second bullet point falls in the 3, 4, and the fourth falls in the 5, 6. I would say, boy, there was 1 in each out of 6 points. I would say that averages to 3. You know what I mean? Your goal is to be getting all of your stuff when you write your IA into that higher category. So let's zoom in a little bit more here. The research question is stated without context. We're going to go one bullet. The 3 to 4 band says the research question is outlined within a broad context. The highest mark says the research question is described within a specific and appropriate context. I'm recording. What the hell does that all mean? Ooh, right now, what I want you to do is turn to this other document. Hacha! I have taken the IB chemistry guide, and I did this morning. I removed all the stuff that was irrelevant to you, and I just took out the important bits concerning your IAs. There's some new things in here that you are all going to find extremely exciting. I'm actually finding it extremely exciting as well, because something tells me a lot of you kids are going to opt for this option, and this option is going to save all of us a lot of work on the IA, should you choose to accept it. We'll get there when we get there. All right, so time allocation. You've already heard me mention how we're going to do 2 years in 1, yeah? Well, guess what? 10 hours of class time? Well, 90 minutes per class, right? I'm supposed to give you 10 hours of class time to work on your IAs in the classroom. It's impossible during class time. It's impossible to do it during third period. Impossible. The only way that we can satisfy this 10-hour obligation is to turn every single Seahawk seminar into chemistry IA seminar. Now, that's not going to be a mandate. If you got to go to your other teacher to retake a quiz or whatever during SS3, I would never tell you, no, you cannot do that. But if you're here, the thing you should be working on is that IA. Because when you're working on it at home on a Saturday night, you're going to, or on a Friday night, I may as well make it connected to reality, you're going to be doing the work, and you're going to run up against something you don't understand. And then you're going to send me an email on Friday at 11 o'clock. What you don't know is that I'm drunk as hell and I'm probably playing GTA at that time. So I'm not going to probably see your email until Monday morning. By then your question may have changed or you may have solved it. Come up with an answer, right? So we're going to try to make every single SS IA time, because that's the time when you run into questions, hey, I'm sitting right here to answer them. If your research question needs more context, needs more focus, I can guide you. I can be like, well, what does that mean? Let me show you. Let me tell you. Let me be your partner in this endeavor. But I can only be your partner if you're here. So try to be here for every single Seahawk seminar. And when you come here, make sure if you have questions, bring the questions to the SEOC seminar. We won't have enough class time to deal with any IA stuff in class. You're always welcome to come by here. Always, 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 always. I mean, Sarah and Lindsay aren't even in class yet, and I'm totally invited them here for this, yeah? So make sure every step along the way, if you're unsure about anything, come to me, or if like Sally, I know you had Mrs. Mullaparty. If I scare you and you want to go talk to her, guess what? She teaches the same goddamn class, just a little slightly easier version. Right? So the both of us, are teammates in this endeavor. We are here to help you and support you along the entire process. You just have to actually reach out for that help. All right, safety requirements. Really, that's going to depend on the lab that you do. Since I know all about chemical safety, I'll guide you toward the research on how to conduct your experiment in the safest way, or I will actually edit your procedure with your cooperation to actually do the safest possible option. I do that for every single lab we do. It's my job. I actually get paid extra money to do that for all the science department. All right, so waiting. Oh, let's talk about, let's get into the minutia, the bullshit later. What I really wanted to show you was the back page. Command terms. If we go back to the rubric, stated, outlined, described. What the hell is the difference? Well, when you state something, all you're doing is giving a specific name, value, or other brief answer without an explanation or calculation. So when it says the research question is stated, your research question would probably sound like, what is the effect of this on that? That's all it would say. You just said it. You didn't provide any context. Does everybody understand what I'm saying there? By the way, I don't want to say, does everybody understand what I'm saying here? If along the way, if anybody doesn't understand, stop me. Please stop me. All right, so what does it mean then to outline? Outlining is to give a brief account or summary. Okay? And then explain, or is describe. Describe is to give a detailed account. So let's look at how that is also supported in the rubric. So here are the criteria for that first mark, research design. A research question with context should contain reference to the dependent and independent variables or to correlated variables, including a concise description of the system in which the research question is embedded, and include background theory of direct relevance. So what that means is, let's say your experiment is changing the concentration of an acid and measuring. Start writing these ideas down, because I want you guys. Oh, okay, I'm just checking. Like a lot of times, like I said last year, I talked about independent variables if you were doing something with electrochemistry, and I was like, just the voltage produced by a voltaic cell. Don't worry about the students. I was like, if your dV is the voltage produced by a voltaic cell, let's come up with a list of IVs. The concentration of the electrolyte, temperature of the electrolyte, the chemical nature of the electrodes, surface area of the electrodes, the submerged surface area of the electrodes. And then guess what? Out of 57, I think it was 57 total number of students, about 40 of them all gave me research questions concerning voltaic cells. Yeah, being a teacher is hard. Your goal, and we'll talk about this, is going to be to start the process with research. Start with research. From the research, you'll develop a research question. I gotta make sure I'm not walking around, because then my video is gonna be crappier. All right, so if I was doing that experiment, I was gonna say, if I was taking like acid and changing the concentration, dropping magnesium in it, right, to see the change in the rate of reaction, I could say, what is the effect of acid concentration on rate of reaction? That would be stated without context. If I was going to say outlined, I would say, what is the rate of reaction, or how is the rate of reaction affected when we change the concentration? You know, like adding a little bit more detail. If you want to make it described, you would think a research question needs to be a sentence. In actuality, it should be a short paragraph. The first assignment that I'm going to assign to you guys is going to be the development of a research question. Now, when we talked about this the other day really briefly, your the way we used to do it was IA assignment number 1. And you would do a research question, your variables, your hypothesis, a general procedure. I did that for like 8 years, Texel, and Uship, whatever. Did that for like 8 years, and then I was like, why am I making kids do all other stuff if the very first thing they wrote, the research question, is not approved, right? So your first assignment is just going to be a research question and your IB and DB. Once it's approved, then we'll move on to the next step. Hi.
Wait, is this not third period?
It's SS3.
Wait, what does that mean?
Seahawks 7-hour third period.
Oh, okay.
Are you in my advisory class?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, so let's come back after the bell.
Okay.
Freshman. I have a freshman advisory, so we can't. I was about to be like, but I was like, wait a minute. Alright, so fresh. The prefix soph actually means juvenile. Like sophomore, juvenile mores. Alright, so if I was gonna describe it, I would say this, like, I'm really bad at improvising sometimes. How is the rate of a reaction between an aqueous solution of hydrochloric acid and magnesium affected by incremental changes in the concentration of the hydrochloric acid measured via gas collection over water? In there, I said what I'm doing, what the IV and the DV are, and how I'm doing and how I'm planning to do it. It's basically like, you know, like an abstract is like a summary of everything. The research question should be a summary of your research plan. You know what's another good thing? Every year, I grade the IAs and they get moderated. Some years I'm right on, they don't change them at all. Other years they go up, I grade too hard, other years they go down. Kind of calls the whole system into question. Because I'm a constant, they're the ones that change. Different people are moderating every year, right? When I went to my IB training to teach this new curriculum at the end of, in summer 2023, they give us a sample IA and they have everyone mark it. I marked it exactly how I've been marking IAs for the last 10 years, 9 years, I only taught 9 years. Guess what?
You got it right.
Nope.
Oh.
I gave that fucker like a 9. Oh, sorry. The moderator gave him like a 16.
Bad.
So I don't know if the IB has softened their stance or what. We'll find out. When you guys all graduate, I'll send everybody an email after the fact to be like, yeah, so I was wrong about that thing when we talked about IAs. But chances are, there's a good chance that they're softening it. Yes, Ruby.
So is what goes in the grade book? Is
We'll
that
talk
what
about
you
that.
think about?
Everything's gonna go informative. Everything except for the final IA. The final thing.
Is that what
And we got guidance from the county that said if it's you don't even have to ask. If it's a final IA, it's an exception to the must be able to retake rule. I told you just deal with the burping, right? Yeah. So that can still go in summative, and you're not allowed to retake it. Because when we first got that, they told us they were going to do that like 2 days before the school year ended last year. I got to show you the email that I wrote to every member of the school board and the superintendent. You'll know that I'm afraid of no one.
Wait, but don't you grade the final IA?
I do.
So
So what the IB does, like let's say we have 50 total kids taking IB chemistry among the SL and the HL. We grade your IAs, and then the IB asked for a sample of 10 of them. So let's say there's 50 total IAs, 10 of those 50 will be sent to the IB. The IB chooses who? They tend to choose a few high marks, a few low marks, and a few marks in the middle. And they moderate each one separately. So we grade them, but then the IB uses those 10 to kind of check our grading.
wait, so you only grade the 10?
No, I'll grade everybody who's in
But
my
then
class.
if they tell you to fix it, do you like
They
change
just
it?
fix it automatically. But the thing is, the moderation affects everyone. So if, like, let's say for the high mark bands, if they moderate down 2 marks, It's based on that one kid's paper, but they moderate all the high mark kids down 2 marks. Last year it was 4. The year before was spot on.
So
I didn't change. What did?
if they like come back and say that our grade should be higher or lower, does that go into our grade book and like insist, or whatever we get is what we
Okay, I'm not. This is so irrelevant because it's not going to happen until like February, March. The way the IA is out of 24 marks. Okay, 15 out of 24 is an exceptional, as far as I'm concerned. That's a really good grade for an IA, but it's a crappy raw score. So the way and also this is the way we've done it historically. I don't know how we'll do it now because things have changed a little bit. So don't quote me on any of this. We said if you get a score of 17 out of 24 or higher, it goes as 100% in the grade book. For each mark under 17, we deduct 3%. So if you get 16, it would be 97. 15, so if I say, so the grade book score is not. I mean, think about it. If you get a lot of kids tend to get around 10s, so that gives them a 79. But I usually just make it an 80 for because if you're working on it. So it's real. So you really got to blow it hard to have it affect your grade. Let's not worry about our third quarter grades before we start doing like anything, right? For the. Okay, yeah, so let's move on. All right, methodological considerations. That's methodological means your procedure, how you set it up. So you set up your considerations associated with data relevant to the research question are stated. So you just said in your research question, right? Oh, I'm going to use gas collection over water. You got to give a step-by-step detailed procedure of what you're going to do. So methodological considerations are sufficient to answer the research question as described, or methodological considerations associated with collecting of sufficient data to answer the research question are explained, right? So once you have your research question, the thing you have to answer is, how am I going to answer it? What are the data what are the data that I'm going to collect? I like to use the correct tense, right? How am I going to collect it? To the extent that some random schmandom person anywhere in the world could take your IA and recreate it exactly as you did. You understand what I'm saying? That's what it means to be explained. If somebody now, in the actual science, your IA would get sent to peer reviewers all over the world. They would repeat your experiment. They'd have to get the same results. We're not at this level yet, but at least in terms of that mark in the rubric, that criteria, that's what it means. Could someone else follow your procedure and do exactly what you did to the letter? What does that mean? Everybody, once you're approved, before your date of data collection, you gotta come in to do a test. Because the timeline turns over so fast, if your idea doesn't work, then we gotta rinse and repeat, and there's not a lot of time to do it. My suggestion to everybody is to have just like you did for the science fair, have your favorite and a backup. Have your favorite idea and a backup idea, just in case your favorite idea doesn't work. Michael Myers last year wanted to, something about heat of metals and conductivity. So his idea was to heat metal electrodes in the oven and then measure the conductivity. Oh, how does heat affect conductivity? All right, so he used like a multimeter and put a charge to them. By the time he got them to from the oven to his lab bench, they were like little thin pieces of metal. They were already cooled to room temperature. His procedure, as written, didn't work, so he needed to switch it up. We tested that during a Seahawks seminar. He didn't wait till November before he realized he had to switch that up. So once you get your idea approved, the thing you need to do is come to me if you're unsure about how you're going to do it. Obviously, I know a lot more about setup than you do. Also, make sure you use your textbook, because this yellow section in the textbook, it's like 70 pages, is all just experimental techniques. If you're doing practical data collection, I freaking guarantee that whatever you're going to use to do it is contained within these yellow pages. Make use of them. All right, so this is taking too much time, so we're going to have to move quicker. So in any case, below each box in the rubric, there is another box explaining what each of those things mean. What does it mean to have context in your research question? What does it mean for that? So if you couldn't tell, this document is massively helpful for writing it. All right, let's look at the next section. It says, the recording and processing of data is communicated, but it's not clear or precise. You know what precision means? Are all of your measurements recorded to the correct number of significant figures based on the devices you're using? That's what precision means. Are you indicating the correct precision? Right? I will help you with all of that. Don't worry. The recording and processing of data. Oh wait, let's do this way. The communication of the recording and processing of data is either clear. Of the data is either clear or precise. So this is neither. So this one must be as both. The communication of the recording of processing is both clear and precise. So it's easy for the reader to digest. When you have a data table, make sure your data table isn't splayed over multiple pages. Whatever you got to do, find some way to put it on a single page. Things like that, right? And it also has to be consistent with reality. That's kind of what precise means. All right, next bullet. The recording processing of data shows limited evidence of the consideration of uncertainties. Ooh, that's what we did on day 1 on August 19th, right? You got to record the uncertainty for each device, and you have to propagate error when necessary. During Seahawk seminars, because it's IA time, I'm gonna finish that lesson from the first day, and then we're just gonna make dummy experiments. I'm gonna say, this is what we just did. These are the instruments we used. Determine the uncertainty of each device, and propagate the uncertainty of the final answer. Things like that. Just like what was in those PowerPoint slides that we did, or the guided notes that you have, but like connected to specific examples. When I took organic chemistry in college, they would show you the mechanism. You'll know what a mechanism is in a few weeks. They showed us the simplest mechanism in the simplest way with symbols and stuff. And then they would say, apply this to this enormous molecule with 1,500 carbon atoms in it. I don't do that. Okay? All right. So, more information down here. So I'm not going to go through the rubric bit by bit, but make sure you're using this rubric as a guide as you go. Because it's literally the document that tells you what it is you need to do. And the beginning of the textbook, for those of you that read it, did you get some useful information about how to proceed from there? If you haven't read it, make sure you do that. Oh, by the way, you guys need books, right?
I have one.
You have one? So, Lindsay, we'll get you a book for you. All right, so let's look at the rest of this thing. This is a reference guide. You should do everything in your power to hang on to this. All of this is in the subject guide that I either put or will put on Schoology, but this is just the bits that are most pertinent to you pulled out for convenience. So there's the time allocation stuff. All right, so here are little details. So the IA requirement's the same for all the science classes. It's an open-ended task in which you gather and analyze data in order to answer a research question, just like the science fair. The outcome of the scientific investigation will be assessed through a written report. The maximum overall word count for the report is 3,000 words. The following are not included in the word count: charts and diagrams, data tables, equations, formulas and calculations, citations, references, whether parenthetical, numbered, footnotes, or endnotes. Ooh, if you can do footnotes or endnotes, I would recommend that. It's so much easier. Also easier, in my opinion, for the reader. Because I see like author and title, then I gotta scroll to the bibliography, find who the author was, look it up. I would rather just be like, ooh, number 1, number 2. It's so much easier. Anyways, the following details should be stated at the start of the report. The title, IB candidate code, whatever, they used to not do that. The number of words. There is no requirement to include a cover page or a contents page. That's different from the previous curriculum, the IA. There was no word count, but it couldn't go over 12 pages. And data tables, appendices, title pages, anything counted toward those 12 pages. And if you had more than 12 pages, the IB automatically we automatically have to take 2 marks away from communication because you didn't follow that guideline. So this document gives you these guidelines. All right, so here's the stuff that's going to make you say, "What? Really? What? This is entirely new." Each student is expected to formulate, investigate, and answer a unique research question, seeking advice from their teacher. I've already offered that to you, haven't I? The student must not present the same set of raw data as another student. Keep this in mind, because what I'm going to tell you next could be sketchy because you may end up violating either of these two requirements. Sierra, it says methodology for individual work. Doesn't that kind of infer that collaborative work is now allowed? Because it fucking is. Let's go! Alright! Oh. Whatever. I just don't like there to be evidence of my misbehavior. You know, I like to have plausible deniability. Alright, so let's just forget about individuals, you get it. Methodology for collaborative work. You are able to form teams of a maximum of 3 students, just like the science fair. The only stipulation I have is they have to be students enrolled in my HL class. If you want to work with someone in this Mold Parties class, go take it. You know what I'm saying? But you are able to collaborate with up to 2 of your classmates. I feel like I'm looking at groups right now, maybe. All right, so we got to be careful when we do this, though, okay? Students may organize their own groups. I will provide guidance to ensure that all students are fully engaged in the collaborative activity. That means if you're working in the group and doing your data collection all together, you all have to be able to show up on the same day. You all have to be able to participate in it. If Meha, Ruby, and Laura? Yeah, sorry. I get you in this mixed up. I don't know why. But if you 3 are a group, guess what? Laura, if you're not holding up your end of the bargain, it's my discretion and their discretion to kick your butt out of their group. And then you'd be on your own at that point, right? So make sure if you're gonna do collaborative work, that everybody's on board. When I used to teach science fair classes, I gotta say, the biggest problem I had was groups that had useless numbers. And the way I said, hey, if you have a useless number, kick them the hell out of your group and let me know. I'll let them know what they gotta do. But I'm not gonna award a grade, and the IB's not gonna award a grade for anybody who just rides another student's coattails. So, collaborative work is optional. You don't have to do it. All right. The methodology developed to answer the individual research question. Each student must have their own individual research question. You cannot study the same variables. Collaborative work would really be you're using the same method to collect your data and using the same chemicals. It's actually even simpler than that, but a student, so the methodology, this morning was the first time I read this, by the way. The methodology developed to answer their individual research question may be in part the outcome of collaborative activity. A student within the group investigates their individual research question by manipulating a different independent variable from those selected by other group members. So same everything, just change your IV, good to go. Or the same IV with different DVs. That would be easier, right? Because then you're only one manipulation. You're just measuring 2 different things. When you take one, when you take the other. Or different data sets from those selected by other group members from within a larger community. So if you're doing, you don't have to do practical data collection. If you prefer, don't forget, every FCPS student has a free account to JSTOR, which is a huge online library of peer-reviewed, scientific and otherwise scholarly literature. Right, so when you're writing your EEs, they don't want .edu, right? Or anything. They want peer-reviewed good stuff. JSTOR, free. You got it. You'll have it probably when you go to college too. Get on. Whatever. I don't care. I'm not gonna do that shit. I've done that. I'm done with college. Teacher now. I'm the one that assigns the work, not gives it, or not does it. All right. So in this context, we're doing this over here. In this context, collaborative work is permitted under the understanding that the final report presented for assessment is that of the individual student. A report by the group is not permitted, including the description of the methodology. All authoring must be done individually. On the next page, there's a diagram that shows a flowchart for a possible method that 3 students would collaborate for the IA. Alright, so all three of you can work together, or two of you, if you decide to group, to collaborate to discuss possible topics of research. The teacher ensures that students develop independent research, that you're doing your own, you have your own variables. Same method's okay. Same variables, not much. Student A develops a research question, so do students B and C. Student A, the methodology is developed through collaboration. You're going to use the same procedure, measuring different things, right? Student A runs their experiment, student B runs their experiment, student C runs their experiment. If you can do it all in one go, bangarang. But maybe you would use the same general setup, but the difference in your variables would mean you would have to collect your data on 2 different days, like, independently. What's that?
So like that electrode example you used with like the different independent variables, like if we did that, like our report would pretty much look the same except for each, like the parts where the independent variable was mentioned.
Precisely. But that would also be a situation where you'd probably have to come on different days for data collection, because if you're investigating, say, the temperature of the electrolyte, that means the concentration has to be held constant. Because otherwise, how would you know that it's not the concentration affecting the voltage? You know what I mean? So if you're doing those kind of variables, you could only do one treatment at a time to the variable. So you could do that, but you still have to come in on different days.
Or it's okay if like the entire paper basically looks the same except one variable is changed. Like, I mean, not exactly.
Yeah. So your research, but it'll be different from the get-go, because your research questions will be different, and everything that comes afterwards is based on your research question. You know what I mean? Just make sure the only thing you do is come up with your ideas together. You can work on the method together. You can even collect data together. But once that happens, go your separate ways. To avoid, because it's the IB does not mess around. If Laura and Meha's IAs are too similar, guess what? The IB is gonna go ding ding ding. The IB is gonna say you've officially failed this class for academic dishonesty, which means you're no longer a diploma candidate, which means you will not get that stupid freaking medal that you want to wear to graduation, which is why most kids are diploma candidates. I realize you could just like buy one on the internet, beg like $10. That's what I would do. Oh God, don't do that. I'm excited to buy the course on eBay. Anyways, we'll continue this. I think guess what? As an XS, but I didn't change the calendar. Today's Thursday. I'm gonna put an assignment on Schoology. Everything's gotta be uploaded. You two should still probably try to do it so you're current, right? It's going to be the development of the research question. Originally, the calendar says Thursday. I'm gonna make it the following Monday. I'm gonna give you that weekend as well. Because if you're gonna collaborate, it'd probably be easier for groups to get together outside of school on a weekend. Yep.
This Monday?
A week from this month. No.
After Labor.
Let's look at the calendar because this is hurting my brain now. All right, so the calendar says they're due on this day. Ooh, it's a long weekend too. Your research questions will be due on Wednesday, September 4th, yeah? That should be more than enough time. But, and this is so important, don't wait till September 3rd. Because if your research question is not going to be approved, it would behoove you to know that sooner than later, yeah? So, develop your research question along the path. Reach out to me and say, how does this look? Because I can either say, good, keep going, or that's not consistent with reality. Someone said, what is the effective temperature on electrons? That was the research question I got. I was like, what does that even mean? You want to submit that one as soon as possible so I can say, no, do something else. You know what I'm saying? Remember what I said on the first, go. But I'm talking your way out. If you work really hard in this beginning bits, develop a research question and methodology, the entire thing becomes so much easier. The kids that are scrambling, I have kids that come in on the day of their data collection and say, what do I do? And I say, start looking for databases online. This is your appointment for research. It's your project. If you don't know what you're doing, too bad, so sad. Your project is canceled forever. Start from scratch. Yeah. So make sure you're, by the time that data collection comes, that you know as much about that project as you've known about anything you've tried out. After all, isn't it right? I'm just the guidance. Bye, see you tomorrow.
Wait, now it's fourth period, right?
Yes!
Okay.
Well, it's actually, this has always been a fourth period question, since all you kids are freshies, we're gonna, Rosie and I'll, one's lined up. Mr. Rose and I will, show you everybody how it works. By the second week of school, you're gonna be used to it, but it's a little weird at first. Yeah, I gotta print that, because they all got taken. So the first thing, I got videos for everything. So the only things we've done so far are, you've already gotten, I did the first part of topic 1.1, stoichiometry, limiting reactants. And on the very first day, I taught uncertainty and error propagation, which you'll need for your IA. So I'll print that one for you. But make sure you watch the videos to actually take the notes, because that'll give you the context and stuff. So, 2 copies. I think I might take a nap during 6th period. Like, literally. I have so much work to do, but because I've been furiously working on it, I'm also extremely tired. Like, mentally exhausted. So, Sarah, wait, you're an environmental and you're an SL Chem, so you already have 1.1. You have the same exact notes probably. Does it look like, who knows, maybe she changed it? Does it look like, oh what,
I mean,
2021, I want 2021. Does it look like this?
We don't have any notes yet.
Oh, you don't? Oh, okay.
I haven't ate through it today.
You can take hers, but still take mine just in case. She may have made edits. Everyone likes to do their own thing.
Yeah.
And then I gotta.
Mine does. Cause I yeah, 'cause I kept being late, like freshman year, and then he would get mad at me.
That's like Mr. Baldwin. All of you teachers.
Okay, staple fest. It's gonna be a matter of time. I gotta find a better. I gotta do the old lady strap. I think that's the only thing I can do. If they're on my head, they fall off my head. If I have them on my lanyard, they fall off the lanyard. I think it's the only thing I mean, reading classes aren't all that expensive. See what I was saying? Like, I'm like, tell you what. You guys are gonna be responsible for stapling.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be greeting my advisory kids outside, and I'm
Oh, yeah,
he's like,
that's
don't worry, Adam. Yeah, it's okay. They'll get over it. And don't forget to, there you go. We got through example 2 in class, so we'll be starting there.
Okay. Do you think I can get like a pass for my advisory? It's like really far.
You know, well, obviously you've had them for a few years now. Who's your teacher?
Mr. 4?
Is there an H?
Yeah.
Good. Whatever. It's 10:33. Where are you going, Lizzie?
Thank you.
Okay. Lindsay to be Shara from
Should I
Leach.
take like a safety quiz or like a lab safety stuff? Like, do I need to get that signed?
Well,
The science class.
yeah, actually, why don't both
lab
you?
safety class.
Why don't both of you take one on your way out,
Okay.
and then you have to do that safety quiz. It's right at the top of the school
Okay.
page.
Oh, okay, got
Can you like read in English? You got it.
it. Okay.
Safety quiz.
Yeah, you've done it a few times.